Shalom, y'all. Shalom, shalom. It's been a while since I made a video. It's been a while since I did a reading. It's been a while since I did a breakdown. But my last video, pretty sure on both, I touched on two chapters of Hebrews. I can't remember which chapter. But the reason I decided to go with 10 this time is because on a reading with some newcomers, I saw a lot of stuff in here that I missed out. And I was like, dang. I was like, I got to touch on this. And, you don't see a lot of people diving in the book of Hebrews just simply because of its difficulty and it's so complex. It's hard to understand a lot of things. And it comes with, a lot of wisdom that you need in your heart and just the knowledge that comes with it. You need to understand where it's coming from. And the audience, it comes with a lot of things that you need to know and how you need to dissect what it's talking about. You also need to stay in context with a lot of stuff. And that's one thing a lot of people fail to do is stay in context. You need to stay in context. And there's a reason why precepts it exists. And one thing I can admit was this book has a lot of precepts that go back to the Old Testament. A lot of people may believe Paul was the author. I believe he was, but it's a lot of things that fit his style of saying things. And he says a lot of identical things in his other letters. So we're going to touch on Hebrews chapter 10. We're going to go through some precepts. We're going to dissect what it's talking about and get the truth. Squeeze as much juice as we can out of this chapter. So let's go ahead. Starting off at verse 1. We already have a goodie. For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because of the worshippers once purged should have no more conscience of sins. Now, when we read Colossians 2:16 through 17, this says the same thing. For the law having a shadow of things to come, we know that a shadow mimics the original, which is kind of what we're doing right now. Everything that we see is not new. A lot of the traditions, a lot of the customs that we have learned from the Torah is the shadow. Everything that we cast down here is the shadow of the original in the heavens. It's almost like a rehearsal. We are practicing how to please the Father, how to operate in his kingdom, how to prep our temples and our bodies, the living sanctuaries, how to prep it to that point. We are basically practicing before we perform eternally our priestly duties, before we go into our priestly office. Everything is a rehearsal. You can't read the Torah when that's the only thing that's going to get you through. The only thing. So let's continue in verse 3. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. Now, what we also missed out on is what we are dealing with. We'll get more clarification in verse 4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. The children of Israel in those days were very, very rebellion. Very rebellious. When you read the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 11, you will see that they will find loopholes in the law and continually every year bring in animals to sacrifice for the exact same sin when that sin should have been addressed the last time you did it and it maybe was atoned for, depending on if it was willful or if it was ignorantly done. But the children of Israel, considering how rebellious they would practice these sins. They would labor in the law, labor in the commandments, continually commit sin, continually offend the same thing, and they would continually have to make atonement for that. Well, considering the fact of how the Father felt about those individuals who were trying to find loopholes in the law, it was not accepted. And we'll find out when we continue to read. Let's go to verse 5. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. And burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. Thou hast had no pleasure. The Father did not like in their doings. They might have thought that they were being deemed righteous because they must have felt as if as long as I have an animal to sacrifice, it's gonna cleanse me. It's gonna make atonement. That's not how the Father operated. He knew what they were doing. Wanted to be double-minded and be corrupt, stay in corruption, but they want to give off this image as righteous. The Father didn't let that slide. Let's continue. Verse 7. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me, Messiah, Mashiach, to do thy will, O Yahweh. Above when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin, thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Then he said, lo, I come to do thy will, O Yahweh. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second, by the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahushua HaMashiach for all, once and for all. Meaning, this was only a one-time thing. This is only one doing. Because we have to realize the value and importance and the what Messiah did on that stake was so much honor and so much mercy for the children of Israel. We don't even understand the volume of what that consists of. That is so much honor. When he said it himself that he had no home to come back and to lay his head, he had no rest. Foxes and birds do, but he had no rest when he came back to his people and he got rejected. No respect, no honor for him. Although went through all of this and still put his life on the stake for us. That's a lot of honor. Let's continue. Verse 11. And every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. So let's come to understanding. The priests were offering the same sacrifices for the same sins, dealing with the same thing that should have been dealt with a long time ago. Those sacrifices that they were offering did not take away those sins. They stood still, firm. Because at that point, why should I make atonement for you? You coming for the same thing over and over and over, repetitive. You are performing the works of the law. You are not doing this with that. You are not doing this with fidelity. You are not loyal to me. You continually come in my course. You continually tread my course for the same thing. The Father got upset with this. He was disappointed. You should be able to get over that. That's what Israel kept on doing, coming in for the same sins every year, as we see in verse 3. So let's continue in verse 12. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins, sat down on the right hand of Yahweh. He's talking about Messiah again. From henceforth, expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified, whereof the Ruach HaKodesh also is a witness to us. After that he had said before. This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, said Yahuwah. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Now where remission of these is, there is no more offering for sin. So let's summarize these last three verses. Not to mention verse 16, the most common verse, Jeremiah 31. Quoting Old Testament to let us know his audience did not change. Dealing with the same people. You can't go to another nation of people and say this to them. They're not going to understand who he is talking about or what he is talking about. I am not disregarding that other nations cannot be saved. But we have to stay in context of who the audience is pointing to with these Hebrew authors. We have to realize that it's pointing to a people who can understand. You can't come to another nation of people and explain law and sacrifice and sanctuary. They're not going to understand what you're talking about. Covenant. They're not going to understand. When you get down to verse 18, he says, now remission. Now where remission of these is, there is no more offering for sin. Meaning, Messiah himself laid himself down to become that lamb. There is no more offering for sin. Do not go pick up that animal and sacrifice it. Don't go kill that animal for no reason. You don't need to. You have the eternal blood and eternal water on your right hand. Actually, you on his right hand. Don't go rely on that animal. Rely on Mashiach. That's what it's saying. We're getting into the spiritual side of this book. So let's start off in verse 19. Having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Yahushua, by a new and living way, which he hath consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh. The new and living way is the spiritual way, going by his blood, going by his order, and having an high priest over the house of Yahuwah. The new way that Messiah introduced to us when he went through that veil to consecrate his flesh in the Shamayim is what we have now under the Melchizedek order. The Torah, the spiritual side of the Torah as well. We don't have our physical temple. We hardly have our physical anything. That's why we have the spiritual side of the book. A lot of people do not understand the spiritual side, so they feel as if they have to go back to the physical. But if you can't go back to the physical, what can you rely on? At that point, you have nothing. You have to understand the spiritual side of the sanctuary. You have to realize the spiritual side of the priesthood, the Torah, the temple, everything, the people. You have to realize it. Because if you do not, you will not be able to come to a full understanding. So let's continue in verse 22. Let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. So he's telling us, stay pure, stay out of the evil conscience, stay in the faith, be confident in the faith, keep the profession, keep the ordinances, keep everything that you have been taught. Because as we know, also in this time, we had an issue of clashing. We clashed a lot. Separate kingdoms, separate people, killing each other. I mean, it was bad with us. We was that bad. Provoke, love, provoke good works. Be tenderhearted with your kinsmen, your brothers and your sisters. Don't forsake the getting together. Come together before the day of visitation approaches, which is the day. That is the day. We have to be as best prepared as we can before the Messiah is coming. And that means we have to deck out our temples. I mean, we have a lot of purging to do because a lot of us is just now coming to this truth. You have a lot of purging to do. A lot, even for myself. Being a little over 2 years in this, that ain't nothing. That is nothing. 3 years is nothing. 4 years is nothing. 10 years is hardly anything. Considering the fact of where our ancestors were when they grew up in this, we got a lot of digging to do, and a lot of living, and a lot of maturing in this word. We have to perfect ourselves a lot. So let's continue in verse 25. 26. I'm sorry. For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins. Meaning, if you go out and you are purposely rebellion, you are purposely in rebellion. Or even if you just come to the knowledge of the truth, somebody tells you, gives you details, all kinds of stuff, and you choose to decline it. But a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour with their adversaries. Meaning you are now on the contrary of the Most High. You have become an opponent in his eyes. You will be standing in front of his judgment, not in the back. You will be getting that sword. That's why we have to be careful with the people who is delivering this truth. Do the research on your own. Seek out that knowledge and that wisdom. Ask the Most High to plant that seed in your temple so that you can come to the understanding of that stuff. Don't always depend on somebody. Seek it out on your own. But don't deny the truth. Don't deny it. Hear the brothers and the sisters out who's trying to push out this word. Just hear them out. Because the truth is all over the scriptures. It's all over the history books. It's all over the DNA, the migration, all kind. It's just there's nowhere to hide. It's out here. We read in verse 28, he that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. That's still going to be the same. Verse 29, of how much sore punishment suppose ye shall he be thought worthy, or hath who hath trodden under the foot, underfoot, the son of Yahuwah, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. For we know him that hath said, vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, said Yahuwah. And again, Yahuwah shall judge his people. The righteous and the unrighteous will both be judged. We will both be judged. It starts with his people first. But do not think, after you have put the Most High on your bottom shoe, don't think that the blood of the covenant gonna cover you. Don't think. You don't wipe the grace out of the picture at that point. Verse 31, it is fearful. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. But call to remembrance the former days, in which, after ye were illuminated, ye endured a great fight of afflictions, partly whilst ye were made a gazing stock both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly whilst ye became companions of them that were so used. For ye had compassion of me in my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that ye have in heaven a better and enduring substance, meaning store your treasures and the Shamayim do not care so much over the riches, the glory on earth, because what matters the most is what you are storing. What are you putting in your lamp? Are you filling your lamp with any oil? Are you stocking up in the heavens? Don't just stock up here. Stock up there as well. Continue to seek that knowledge and that wisdom. Those two go together like peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't leave. And you need it. You absolutely need it. Especially for the younger generation as well, because a lot of us seek marriage, a lot of us seek kids, a lot of us seek higher leadership roles. In order to get to those points, the knowledge and the wisdom is going to be that foundation for everything. It's more than just what the world has to offer. If you got those two, you are good. If you come to the realization, you come to the knowledge of everything that you need, you are good. Mature in the word. Maturity in the word is perfection to the Most High. That shows that you can be able to get tried in the fire and come out and still seek the word, still get on your knees, still lead that brother or sister. That's what matters. Let's continue in verse 35. Cast not away, therefore, your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of Yahweh, ye might receive the promise. You hear, it's not a guarantee to get into the kingdom. Reread that. After ye have done the will of Yahweh, you might, you might receive the promise. Because the prophets and Yah himself knows that many will drop like flies in these last days. It's gonna get to that point where temptation, influence, and sin gets so large that great transgression, it's gonna get so big, it's gonna consume a lot of brothers and sisters. And I hope that anyone who is seeking this truth and anyone who wants to seek the truth, I pray that you are not a part of that transgression because it's gonna be big. The excuses add up. The excuses you give brothers and sisters add up. This is not the time to excuse the little things that can grow into big things. This is the time to seek everything with a full heart. Deny yourself. Deny what you feel like you need. Deny what you feel like is best. Because a lot of our fallback plans, a lot of our second choices, is still gonna send you to that lake, regardless if you feel like it's better than what you used to do. We need to stick to the plan. We need to stick to the code. And that's the same thing that we have been taught since we even opened up this book in Genesis. Stick to the code. Continue in verse 37. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. Now that the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. This right here is a precept. Habakkuk 2 and 4. Let's go touch on it. Habakkuk 2 and 4 is Old Testament. Not many people know it. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. The just shall live by his faith. We can also touch on Deuteronomy 32, verse 20. It also speaks on faith. We need to come to a realization that faith is not new. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. This is nothing new. It's been here. But we have these religious organizations putting in our head and our temples to believe that faith is new. No, we've been needed it. It's been here. It's been a thing. And that's something that we need to seek with the whole heart because it is the only thing that we can depend on. It is our loyalty and our fidelity to the Father. That is what matters. And let's continue off with verse 39. But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul. And we know that this word believe should really be faith. Believe is a often mistranslation in the scriptures because it guides you to a whole nother route. If I was to reinstate this, it should be of them that have faith, or of them that are faithful to the saving of the soul. Because when we understand the word faith, imuna, that brings us to a whole nother understanding. Let's look at this word perdition in case anybody else may be confused. Destroying, uttering destruction, perishing, or ruin. So, anyone who draws back to destruction, and let's put it like this, anyone who draws back unto their vomit, we are not that people who go back to our old ways, our old habits. What was once our destruction of our temples, what was once destruction of our lives, what was leading us to the lake, what was leading us to the mind of a dog, we would not go back to that. But we are of the people who believe in saving of the soul, who have faith in saving of the soul, the followers of the way, the followers of Hamashiach. That is what matters. That was the end of the chapter. I hope I explained everything to the best of my ability to where you can be able to understand, to where you can be able to take this out and give this knowledge to someone else. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any support, put it in the comments. Any backup scriptures to better explain everything because precepts is very important. Very important. And this chapter is loaded with precepts. I just can't get to them all because it's too many. It's well over than 10. Hope y'all enjoy this breakdown in this reading. Shalom.